When I was a baby, I had a relationship with God. I had this experience where I was left in Guatemala while my people went and did work, and I was in the jungle with a family being taken care of. But during that experience, I had this extreme connection to a feeling of love, even more than the family was giving me or my own people. And it was at this time that I realized there was some loving force that was all around me constantly, enveloped around me and the immediate environment that I was in. It was so real and palpable that I could like feel it. I could almost touch it, but I could feel it in my inside myself, like in my heart, in my mind, and I can remember it. This is a memory that I had before I was 3. This feeling, this realization of the love that is all around us and inside of us is something that I grasped onto and connected with and never forgot. It's so important to me that I wanted to talk about it and make a video about it. Especially because of the season. Here we are. It's Easter, and this is what do they call it? A testimony. This is a testimony that I have for my relationship with God. My to me, God, by the way, is defined as the prime mover or the source. I think God, another word for it would be love, because love is what is emanating in the universe, creating life and intelligence in the universe. And this is something I realize now, but when I was a kid, I didn't know exactly what I was feeling or where it was coming from, except that every time I went to nature, I would feel it stronger and it would be more real to me. Sometimes when I was growing up, I would find myself in communities or in a group of people where I would also feel it. And this love is something that I grasped onto. I had to hang on to it because of the way I was being raised. If I didn't have that with me, I would have probably lost my mind, or I would have become a very sad person probably. So this love that I discovered in Guatemala, of all places, is and always has been extremely important to me. It has saved me from trouble so many times, depressing trouble, trouble of being in a situation or around people that are sucking the love or taking the energy of goodness out of the space. Have you ever experienced that, where you walk into a room and you could just feel the emptiness in it, even though it's full of people? Or even the opposite of that, you walk into a room and the love and the happiness, the goodness and joy is almost palpable. You can almost touch it. So this is sort of what I'm talking about. And it leads me to a very funny story. It's this love that I experienced when I was a baby is again, it's something I grabbed onto and held onto, knowing that it was real, even if there wasn't any human or adult around, or anybody, even dogs and pets, even if they were not around, as long as I was in nature enough to feel it, I could experience this love again. And later, I could experience it anywhere I went, because I realized it was something that was inside of myself. I could always grab onto it and have it in my heart. I also think, everybody has this. Everybody, whether or not they're tuning into it or not, they have access to it, or they already have it. And what they're having, of course, is the love that I'm talking about. This love that exists. It's all around us. It's everywhere, all the time. And we just need to be sensitive enough to tune into it. Well, I definitely tuned into it when I was a kid. And it, uh, it made me the person I am today. But the story I want to share is when I first entered a public school. I have autism, and with autism, sometimes trouble can happen. Usually, the trouble is with other people, and it's centered around a miscommunication or a misunderstanding of events. And one of my traits that I have with autism is I'm not really very good at speaking in public, or speaking, in a public situation with other people. Even on the telephone, it's difficult for me to be really comfortable in my skin. Even on the internet, it's so weird. There's nobody here, and I'm just speaking to the phone, but I feel like I'm already projecting publicly out into the world. So I know it's a subjective feeling, but I joke and say maybe quantum mechanics has some participation in this. But you know, ultimately, what happened in my story is that I approached these kids. I had just entered their school in the middle of the school season. My stepsister and I joined the school uh, in winter, so it was right after Christmas, at the beginning of the new semester, and so it was the beginning of January, and we had just walked into the school, and the kids were basically getting to know us. They were meeting us for the first time, and I'll never forget, because of how strange it is as an adult to think about a kid doing this. But this is what I did. I remember it was we my stepsister and I, by the way, we were in a different class from each other, and so I was alone in this class with these students that I didn't know for the first day. And after a couple hours, we had the opportunity to go have recess. And so it was during recess when the kids kind of gathered around to see who I was, to meet me. And what I said to these kids was the memory that I want to share. I told these kids, under no uncertain terms, that I loved them. I told them that I loved them. And I remember after the laughter died down, these third graders, well, sort of the more brave of the third graders, the guy who was more popular, I think, more in charge, he started asking questions about it, and sort of making fun of what I had just said. But I was so genuine and honest with my love for them that I repeated myself and gave them a few different examples of why or how I loved them. And they still laughed. They still laughed at me, but it wasn't a mean laugh. It was, I thought maybe they were laughing with me. The reason I remember it so much is because of their reaction. And then after that happened, I remember there was about a month where they sort of didn't want to make friends with me, which didn't matter really to me because, again, at this time, even in third grade, I have this pervasive feeling of love that is exuding all around me constantly, all the time. And I know it sounds cheesy, but I have to talk about it because it's a real subjective experience that I have had for my whole life. It seemed like it was more intense when I was a child. Like as an adult, I can remove myself from the immediacy of that feeling. It's easy to get distracted, I guess is the word. But when I was a kid, I wasn't distracted as much, and I was constantly in touch with that feeling. And I presume to say that I think we are all doing that. All kids are doing that. They have that in them, that feeling of love and that connection to the source, even if they sort of forget it. So, these third graders, after a month, they accepted me. That was the benefit of saying that to them, and the reason I wanted to share this with them. I didn't have any animosity for these people, even though they laughed at my sharing of my feeling. I told them I loved them under no uncertain terms. I even singled each one of them out after they sort of said they didn't believe me, and would look them in the face and tell them I loved them. It it eventually, after a month, it allowed them to trust me. I think at first maybe they didn't trust me, and I was just speaking, you know, gibberish and not speaking the truth. But given time, you hang out with somebody and you get to know them a little bit, and and I'm being honest constantly. I'm not lying or clouding up the truth with my feelings, especially. And so they accepted the fact that I really did love them, and that helped me so enormously much. I mean, it really caused me, or allowed me, to get over this divide that I had with the kids that were dealing with this new guy who was clearly in a different personality uh, grouping. My autism and my OCD, as well as my ADHD, it expressed itself even more when I was a kid. And so when I did something weird in class or acted up a little bit strange, these children, after a few months, would be in my corner. They would defend for me, defend me in what I was doing to anybody who didn't understand, like in another class that, didn't know me as well. And I just wanted to share this story because it's one of the things that has not only kept me going, this love that I've always felt a connection with. You know, I I like to use the metaphor of the thinness. I saw a monk talk about it once. There's another side of reality that we can't see, says this monk, and there's a thinness between our side of reality and this other side. And this other side is always right there. It's pervasively in our space constantly, just like we're in their space, but we just can't see it. But when we're maybe very young, maybe we can see it. Maybe we can feel it more. And maybe when I was telling these kids in the third grade, when I was talking to them about my love for them and the reason why, the reason why being that I have this feeling of love constantly coming out of me, that maybe they felt that themselves. Maybe they actually were able to tune into that frequency again for themselves as they were, even though they're in third grade, maybe they had started to forget about it. And so, none of this is gospel. I certainly don't know if any of this is 100% true. These are not scientific facts. I'm talking about, excuse me, I'm talking about a subjective feeling here. My subjective feeling of love is a fact. That is not an opinion. The only thing that's not a fact is that I can't necessarily prove it scientifically. Like I've mentioned before in other videos, love is ephemeral. It's an ideation. It's an idea that we create. It's mystical, and all that good stuff. Those great words that we use to describe these feelings that we have. But feelings are real. Feelings are very real. And so I had this very real feeling of love that continued to be with me as I grew up. And because of that, I always found myself in a better situation, less fear, almost no fear. I mean, ultimately, the greatest fear I have is public speaking. I tried to do public speaking when I was volunteering at the state capitol in Salem when I was in high school, and I failed pretty bad. I have this uh, I have this inner confidence, probably because I'm a Leo, and there's other things. My natural personality type is to have somewhat of a confident position, and sometimes I can abuse that and think that think that I'm more confident than I really am. And so I thought I was confident enough to speak in front of 300 or 400 students that had come to a rally one day, and I found that to be really difficult. Later in that day, I was able to speak to a handful of men and women, like maybe 8 people. They were adults in a subcommittee. I had no trouble speaking to them, but when it came time to speaking to hundreds of people, boy, that was difficult. So the love that I have, that I'm feeling, didn't overcome my fear of public speaking in those days when I was a teenager. But it's such a real feeling for me. This connection that I have to love and nature is love, I believe. So that when we are in nature, we're being connected to the love. And people are in cities, and people are nature. So there is a lot of love in cities, even. Cities are also art. When we build a city, we're artfully doing it. And as good as our art is as good as a city is, I suppose. But art is based on love. So cities have a lot of love too. I just don't feel it as much as I do when I'm in nature. I can't believe it's already been 16, 17 minutes, but that's my story, my testimony with connecting to the source, the prime mover, love, the universe. It followed me all of my life, and I picked up on it as my very first memory. I hope it's my last. I hope you guys have a great day tomorrow and every day. Take care. I love you guys. Bye bye.